This is the Wild Robot, chapters 20 through 25. We're going to do 5 now. The language of the animals. It all started with the birds. They had always been skittish when the robot was near. They would stare and screech and scatter, but now that Roz was camouflaged, she could secretly observe their normal behavior right up close. Roz noticed chickadees fluttering through the same flowers and singing the same song every morning. She noticed a lark who swooped down to the same rock and sang the same song every afternoon. She noticed the same two magpies singing to each other from across the same meadows every evening. After weeks of robotically studying the birds, Rose knew what each bird would sing, and when they would sing, and eventually why they would sing. The robot was beginning to understand the birds. But she was also beginning to understand the porcupines and the salamanders and the beetles. She discovered that all different animals shared one common language. They just spoke the language in different ways. You might say each species spoke with its own unique accent. When Roz first listened to the chickadees, their song had sounded like tweedle tweedle, tweedle tweedle. But now when the chickadees sang, Roz heard, "Oh, what a lovely day it is. Oh, what a lovely day it is." Despite deer spoke mostly with their bodies. By simply turning their head, a doe could say to her family, "Let's look for clovers by the stream." Snakes often hissed to themselves things like, "I know there's a tasty mouse around here somewhere." Bees said very little. They used their wings to buzz a few simple words like nectar and sun and hive. Frogs spent much of their time searching for each other. One would croak, "Where are you? I can't see you." And the other would reply, "I'm over here. Follow my voice." When Roz first stomped across the island, the animals' squawks and growls and chirps had sounded like nothing more than meaningless noise. But she no longer heard animal noises. Now she heard animal words. The introduction, chapter 21. There was an hour each morning in the dim light of dawn when all the island animals were safe. You see, long ago they had agreed not to hunt or harm each other during that hour. They call it the dawn truce, which is a vocab word, which means you leave each other alone. Most mornings, the island residents would gather into the great meadow and spend their hour chatting with friends. Of course, not everyone attended these gatherings. The bears had never made an appearance, and the vultures just circled high above. But on this particular morning, an unusual large group of animals had come to discuss some important news. "Settle down, everyone, I have something to say." Swooper the owl hooted to the crowd from the lowest branch of a dead tree. "Last night I saw a mysterious creature here in the great meadow. It seemed to be covered in grass. I couldn't get a good look at it, but I think it may have been a monster." Looks of concern swept over the crowd. "What was the creature doing?" said Dart the Weasel. "It was speaking," said Swooper. "It kept repeating the same words over and over again. But each time it sounded a little different. At first it sounded like a cricket, and then it sounded like a raccoon, and then it sounded like an owl." "What was it saying?" said Dig Down the groundhog. "I could be mistaken," said Swooper, "but I think it was saying, 'Hello, my name is Roz.'" The crowd began to chatter. "Just where was this creature?" said Fink the fox. Everyone turned as the owl slowly pointed to his wing to a grassy lump in the meadow. It was a rather ordinary looking grassy lump until it began to move. As you probably guessed, the grassy lump was Roz. She had been there the whole time camouflaged, watching, listening, and with all the animals looking at her, she decided to introduce herself. The crowd stared in disbelief as the grassy lump started shaking and bulging upward and crumbling apart, and then there was the robot. Then, using her body and voice, the robot spoke to the animals in their own language. "Hello, my name is Roz." The crowd gasped. Swooper fluttered up from the branch and screeched, "It's the monster." "I'm not a monster," said Roz. "I am a robot." A flock of sparrows suddenly took off. "Leave us alone," squawked Dart as he crouched low to the grass. "Return to whatever horrible place you've come from." "I come from here," said Roz. "I have spent my whole life on this island." "Why haven't you spoken to us sooner?" screeched the owl from higher up in the tree. "I did not know the animal language until now," said the robot. Crown Point, the buck, had heard enough, and he slipped into the forest with his family. "So what do you want from us?" growled Fink. "I have observed that different animals have different ways of surviving," said the robot. "I would like each of you to teach me your survival techniques." "I'm not going to help you," screeched the owl from the top of the tree. "You seem so unnatural." "The monster was just waiting to gobble us up," shrieked Dig Down, and the groundhog appeared into a hole. "I will not gobble anyone up," said Roz. "I have no need for food." "You don't need food?" Finks relaxed a bit. "Well, I need food, and lots of it. Why don't you make yourself useful and find me some food? What would you like me to do? Said Roz. Can you hunt? The fox smiled at a hare on the far side of the gathering. It's almost time for breakfast. I cannot hunt, but I could gather berries. The fox's smile disappeared. Berries? I'm hungry for meat, not berries. Good luck to you, Roz. You're going to need it. The fox trotted away. Roz looked up at the tree, but the owl had gone. And when the robot looked down again, she realized that everyone else had gone too. That didn't go very well, did it? See the picture there? Chapter 22, The New World. A new word was, sorry, that world, a new word. A new word was spreading across the island. The word was Roz. Everyone was talking about the robot, and they wanted nothing to do with her. I don't think I'll ever feel comfortable knowing that Roz is on the prowl, which means going after food. I hope Roz camouflages herself as a rock forever. Shh, there's Roz now. Let's get out of here. Roz wandered the island, covered in dirt and green, growing things, and everywhere she went, she heard unfriendly words. The words would have made most creatures quite sad, but as you know, Robert, robots don't feel emotions, and in these moments, it was probably for the best. Chapter 23: The Wounded Fox. My face, my beautiful face, somebody help! Fink the fox was laying on a log, howling in pain, with a face full of long, sharp quills. When Roz appeared, isn't there anybody else who could help? Would you like to leave? Said the robot. No, please don't go. I'll take what I can get. What happened? I didn't think that porcupines could see me in the bushes, but when I went for his throat, suddenly there were quills in my face. Why did you go for his throat? Why do you think? Because I was hungry. If you had not attacked the porcupine, you would not have quills in your face. Yes, Roz, I know that. But a fox has got to eat. I just didn't expect to put up such a fight. Oh, there he is with quills in his face. Look, there are even quills in my paws. I can't walk. My face is numb. I could die if you don't help me. What would you like me to do? Said the robot. I'd like you to pull out the quills. Roz calmly knelt beside Fink and said, I will pull out the quills. The robot started to tug on the quill, but it snapped off in her fingers. Fink yelped and said, pinch it closer to the skin. So Roz pinched the broken quill closer to the skin, and then very slowly she pulled it out. The fox winced in pain and said through its teeth, Please, Roz, pull them out faster. This is agony. Roz quickly tugged another quill, then another and another. The fox lay perfectly still, eyes closely tightly, wind whistling through his nose until every single quill had been removed and placed in the neat pile beside him. Fink struggled to his feet. Thanks, Roz. I owe you one. The fox smiled briefly, and then he limped away. Chapter 24 is called The Accident. As Roz wandered through springtime, she saw all the different ways that animals entered the world. She saw birds guarding their eggs like treasure until the chicks finally hatched. She saw deer give birth to fawns who were up and running in a matter of minutes. Many newborns were greeted by loving families. Some were on their own very first breath. And as you're about to find out, a few poor goslings would never even get a chance to hatch. Roz was climbing down one of the forest cliffs when the accident happened. The wind started blowing out of the north, and suddenly clouds were rushing over the island. With the clouds came a spring shower, a downpour actually, and there was our robot, clapping her hands onto a wet block of stone on the side of the cliff. But the block couldn't handle the extra weight. And as the heavy robot hung there, cracks suddenly shot through the stone, and it started breaking apart. Down went the robot plummeting into the treetops below. She crashed through branch after branch before finally hooking an arm around one. Then she dangled there, gently swinging as rocks roared past her on the way to the forest floor. When the dust settled, Roz shimmied down the tree trunk. The ground was littered with broken rocks and splintered woods and pulverized shrubs. And within all that rubble was a goose nest that had been torn to shreds. 2 dead geese and 4 smashed eggs lay among the carnage. Carnage is one of our vocab words, all the dead things. The robot stared at them with her softly glowing eyes. Something clicked deep inside her computer brain. Roz realized she had caused the death of an entirely family of geese. Chapter 5, our last chapter for this section, is called The Egg. As Roz stood in the rain, staring down at those poor, lifeless geese, her sensitive ears detected a faint peeping sound coming from somewhere nearby. She followed the peeps over to a clump of wet leaves onto the ground, and when she peeled back the leaves, she discovered a single perfect goose egg sunk into the mud. Mama! Mama! Peeped a tiny, muffled voice from within the egg. The robot gently cradled the fragile, which means you can break it, thing in her hand. Without a family, the unhatched gosling inside would surely die. Roz knew that some animals had to die for others to live. That was how the wilderness worked. But would she allow her accident to cause the death of yet another gosling? After a moment, the robot started to walk carefully. Here's a picture of the egg. Holding the egg, she moved through the forest and away from the sad scene. But she didn't get far before Fink burst out from the bushes. What happened? The fox panted. The whole forest was shaking. It was an accident, said the robot. I was climbing those cliffs when the rocks started to fall. You should be more careful, said Fink, as he checked out the robot's new scrapes and dents. I'll need your help. I'll need your help if I ever have more porcupine trouble. I will be more careful. What do you have there? Said Fink, looking up at Roz's hands. A goose egg. Oh, I love eggs. Can I eat it? No. Please? No. Why do you want it? The fox scowled. I thought you didn't eat food. You may not have this egg, Fink. The fox sighed. The fox sighed. He scratched his chin, and then he started sniffling the breeze. His nose had found the scent of the dead geese. You can keep your egg, he said, as he trotted toward the cliffs. I smell something better. The robot walked on through the misty forest for a long time until she was standing beneath a sprawling oak tree. Roz placed the egg on a pad of moss. Then she snatched grass and twigs from the ground and delicately wove them together to make a little nest. She placed the eggs inside the nest, placed the nest on her flat shoulder, and climbed onto the branches.